at her age, but I didn't think really, I never thought violence. I never thought murder. I never thought anything like that. I just thought he likes her, and he's acting like an idiot.
Even in hindsight, you don't see this coming.
No, you never. And how could you? I mean, it's really the same thing like you never saw Sandy Hook shooting coming. I mean, like with the podcast you did about this boy that shot his friends in the cafeteria. Oh, my God, did you see that coming? Like that was, maybe the right people didn't know about it, but that was clear there was something that was going to happen. This was not. There were signs of someone being mentally disturbed, but there wasn't a sign that someone would ever, So you can imagine.
There were even signs that maybe he might try to commit suicide.
Yes, and that was the concern, only the concern that he may harm himself. And so after that situation happened, it was quiet for a while. And honestly, again, I forgot about him. Like he didn't even exist.
Right.
Because in my world, he didn't exist. He wasn't the kid that was at my house. I didn't know him by name. I never cooked for him. To me, he didn't exist. So I didn't ever mention him again, and Maren didn't mention him again, but I am sure that when Maren saw him in school and stuff, she was uncomfortable. And I'm sure she avoided him because I have a couple of stories about her avoiding him in school that was told to me after she passed. People think that he killed Maren because she didn't go to the prom with him. That was the straw, but that wasn't, you know what I'm saying. Yes, it did happen, but before that happened, Maren was in the living room with me, and she was doing her homework on one sofa. I was watching TV on the other sofa, and I remembered the night distinctly because she had a big bedroom. We had a small condo, but she had the biggest room. And I said to her, "Why are you sitting out here doing your homework while I'm watching TV? Like, why don't you go in your room and do it?" And, but now that I look back, if she didn't sit there, I may have never known that this was happening. So I have to tell you, and as you know, everything is like synergistic. It just works. And when you look back, you're like, wow, like the events that happened were for a reason. So she's sitting there, and I'm a little aggravated because she's getting texts over and over, and her phone is like binging, and I'm watching something I really like to watch, and so I'm getting annoyed with her because she's making noise over there. And then all of a sudden I hear her start breathing heavy, like every time she reads a text, she's doing this. So finally I get up, and I literally get up off the sofa, and I say to her, "What is going on?" And she says to me, "It's Chris." And I say to her, "What does he want?" And she goes, "Mommy," she goes, "he's threatening to go off his meds and to hurt himself." Now, as you know, you don't know my personality, but I will tell you that my concern at the moment was not about him. And I got up, and this is why I have the mission statement exactly worded the way I have it, because of this very conversation. I looked right at her and I said, "Maren, he's psychologically manipulating you." And she looked at me and she said, "No, he's not, Mom." And I'll never forget it. I never, ever explained to her what that meant, because I was so angry that I knew what he was doing, that he was making her feel bad. He was putting a guilt trip on her. He was making her feel that she was the only one in the world that could save his life. And it's like, you don't do that to a 15-year-old girl. And it was really pure manipulation on his part. In his sick head, he needed Maren to save him and to get attention. And I was really upset about it, and I said to her, "I'm going to tell you something. You're going to text him right now, and you're going to tell him that your mother said if he sends one more text, I'm going over to his house right now to speak to his parents. So tell him to shut his phone off." And whatever she said to him, he never texted again. So he must have got scared, because I was ready to go over there, because I had it. I was like, this kid is manipulating my daughter. Maren is so sweet, so kind. This isn't the type of, bitchy girl that's going to say, go screw. She's going to literally lose sleep over this. And it was really, really getting to me, because I had been her when I was her age. And now I'm older, jaded, been through a lot of experiences, so I don't act like that anymore. But Maren definitely is a twin of me when I was that age. So I knew exactly how she was feeling, and I wasn't going to let it happen. This happened one night, right? The next night, I had my friends over. So this must have happened like on a Saturday or something like that, because it happened the next night. I had my friends over, and then that next morning she went to school. So there was a day in between. So 2 days later, one day after he texted her that, the next day he was not in school the next school day. So whether he was depressed or I don't know why he wasn't in school. I never found out. I never asked. But he wasn't in school, which is a red flag, because he's telling Maren he wants to hurt himself and he's going to go off his meds, and then he's not in school. So something was going on. I don't know what was going on, but something was going on. That's the first and last time I ever heard anything about medication or about him hurting himself. That day went by, and Maren went to school the next day. But the next evening, I had friends over for food and drinks and stuff, and Maren was home. And just out of the blue, because they have children with Maren in school. So I said to them, to Maren, tell them what Chris said to you last night. So Maren tells them. And now, meanwhile, I never looked at Maren's phone, so I didn't see exactly what he texted her. I just went by what Maren told me. At the time, I didn't know he was a cutter. I had no idea. So when he said he was going to hurt himself, I literally thought he was just manipulating her. I didn't realize that he was already a cutter. Because if I had asked Maren the question and said, how is he going to hurt himself? Because I think he wrote to her, I'm going to start cutting again. I don't know that for sure. But apparently he had been doing this for a while. And that's, I think, what he was threatening. I'm going to cut myself again. But I didn't ask her. So if I had known that, I might have said to myself, oh, shoot. You know what I mean? He's got a serious, history. But because I didn't know that, I just figured he was just being manipulating and lying, you know? Exactly. And right. So the main focus now is what? On him hurting himself, not on him hurting anybody else. Everybody said to me and to Maren, well, first to me, Donna, she has got to go report this tomorrow morning. So I kind of thought maybe she should, but honestly, Simone, my headspace wasn't there. My headspace was Maren staying away from him. I wasn't thinking about her reporting anything. For the greater good of everybody and for him, it was the right thing to report it because we want to get him help, right? It's all about him. So, and Maren's emotional state because, he was really working on her. So I, of course, have a conversation with them immediately because I see how strongly they're reacting. And I said, okay. And they're like, Donna, she has to go in tomorrow. She has to go to her guidance counselor. She has to report this. The parents have to be notified about this. This is not normal behavior. And I'm like, okay, she's definitely going tomorrow. And they're like, you should even go with her. And I'm like, no, Maren can handle this. She's a big girl. She's going to go into her guidance counselor. I will call the school in the morning and, all that stuff. And my boyfriend says to her, Maren, I'll never forget it. He's standing right in front of her and he says, now this is over. You are not his counselor. You are not an adult. These are not issues that you should handle. This is not fair for someone to make you handle these type of issues. Your job is to report this and then move away and distance yourself from him completely. So she's like, okay. So the next morning, I called her guidance counselor and I called his guidance counselor. And I left messages for both of them. And I told them, Maren is on her way into your office this morning. She has something that she wants to report. Maren is extremely, extremely nervous that the person she's going to report something about is going to know it's her. Please keep this anonymous. Maren was very nervous. And looking back, I wish I had gone with her. So I warned them that, please, Maren is trying to do the right thing, but she really doesn't want to make her friend feel bad, and she's very, very nervous about doing this. So please let me know how this all, plays out. So Maren goes to her guidance counselor, She tells her guidance, I don't know exactly what she told her guidance counselor, but she went in and said that, Christopher Plaskon is threatening to hurt himself. My mother sent me in to report this. I'm very nervous. I really don't want him to know it's me. But again, it was probably the only person that he told was Maren, so of course he was probably going to know it was Maren anyway. And supposedly, Maren left, and her counselor contacted his counselor and told his counselor the story. And the story from there, from what I understand, the parents were contacted by the counselor. Okay. He was out of school for about a week. He was then readmitted back into school without a doctor's note, without anything, just back to school. And the principal, the vice principal, the resource officer, the security guards, nobody was told that Maren went in and complained about this situation. The counselor broke all of the protocol that is mandatory protocol when someone comes in and reports someone that's going to self-harm. Because all of these eyes were not on this child, he was able to manipulate to come in school with a knife and murder Maren because nobody was looking at him. And if the counselor had done the chain of command, which she was supposed to do, the principal and the vice principal would have had to mandatorily report a suicide attempt, and he would have been taken out of school and probably put into a facility or on the correct medication or whatever he needed. But that didn't happen because the right procedure wasn't followed. So when Maren reported this, we just kind of washed our hands of it and walked away and said it's taken care of. I contacted Maren during the day. I know she was nervous. I texted her probably 4 or 5 times that day. I was like, how are you? How did it go? Have you seen Chris? And she said to me, no, Mommy, he's not in school today. So he threatened that 2 nights before, and then he wasn't in school. So something was going on. And every day I would say to her, have you seen him? Have you seen? Because I know how nervous she was about running into him. And she said, no, Ma, I think he's out getting help or something because he's been out all week. And then a couple of days would go by, I wouldn't say anything. And then one day I said to her, so have you run into him yet? And she said, yeah, oh my God, I did today. And I said, oh my God, how did that go? And she goes, Mom, he came up and sang to me. And I went, see, you did the right thing. I came home again from work, and she again was in the living room upset. And I said, what's going on? And she said, Mom, you're never going to believe what, it was one of their mutual friends. She said, Mom, you're never going to believe what so-and-so did. And I said, what? And she said, he's setting up for Chris to ask me to the prom. And I went, what? And she goes, yeah, they're texting me. Supposedly Chris bought like a bunch of white roses, and this go-between friend was like being his buddy, you know what I mean, like helping him out. And she goes, and he knows I don't like him like that. They both know I don't like him like that. Why is he doing this to me? And I'm like, oh, God, Maren, are you kidding me right now? Because you know how hard it is to reject someone that's, you know what I mean? Here, clearly, Chris knew Maren didn't like him that way, and he was still going to go ask her to the prom. Now, I don't know if he was egged on by his friends to do it, like to encourage him, you know what I mean, because he really wanted to ask her. But the fact of the matter is he knew she didn't like him that way. She did not have a date to the prom at this point. That's another misconception. Yeah. Everybody thinks she had a date, but he asked her anyway, and that's not the case. She was going solo, and she was fine with it. And then this happened with Chris. So all I could say to her, Simone, was, Maren, let me ask you a question. Do you want to go to the prom with Chris? Now, I already knew the answer, but I wanted her to say it out loud. She goes, no. And I went, then the answer is no. I don't know what to tell you. You tell him no, Maren. And she did. I don't know how she did. I don't know if she, texted him and said, listen, you're my friend. I don't like you that way. I don't know how she did it, but she said no. And then there was silence from Christopher until the morning he killed her. So what happened is about 3 weeks later, here comes Jared. And apparently Maren had been kind of liking Jared. Jared was a mutual friend of hers and Chris's. Yeah. But no one knew that Chris asked Maren to the prom because Maren didn't tell anybody. Maren didn't want to make him feel bad. So when people found out the day that she passed, that he had asked her to the prom, like her teachers, and no one could believe it because they were like, Maren was a vocal girl that talked to everybody. And they were like, Maren never mentioned it. And I was like, because she didn't want him to feel bad, about the rejection. So she just pretended it didn't happen. And then Jared asked her, and her best friend